And welcome back to another extension episode of Club Conversations, where we're diving into a little bit more in depth on influencers and the role that they play within business success. I've got what I would consider very exciting guests that I've been looking forward to having on this podcast for quite some time. We've got Marcus Johnson on the podcast. And before we dive into how cool Marcus is, me and Marcus connected probably about 6 months, a year ago, and we sat down for coffee. And I find it very hard sometimes to connect very well with some sort of marketing agency and creators, things like that. But we had a great conversation, and I've enjoyed building a relationship with Marcus because he's just an awesome dude. So Marcus Johnson, CEO of Flow Forward Media and Flow Forward Creative, welcome to the podcast.
Caleb, I am very, very happy to be here. Very blessed to have the relationship and friendship that I have with you guys, and I'm looking forward to this.
It's a big deal. We've got at least 2 subscribers so far, so this is going to increase your audience by at least 2 or 3 people that are listening. So don't want to brag. We're basically the biggest marketing podcast out there, so be ready. You're going to get so much business from this.
Heck yeah, it takes 2 to tango, baby.
2 to tango. I love that mantra. All right, so diving right in, Marcus, tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to start Flow Forward Media and Flow Forward Creative.
So my background is in nothing marketing related, actually. It's in baseball. Baseball was my whole life growing up. I have a finance major or finance degree from Oklahoma Christian University. But like when I say my background is baseball, like that's what I literally did every single day from 10 years old to 23 years old. But what happened, how I started Flow Forward Media was basically I was failing accounting class at Oklahoma Christian during baseball season. I had to go to an extra credit meeting where an entrepreneur was talking. And at the end of his speech, he asked the crowd if anyone knew how to build websites and if anyone knew anything about digital marketing. I had no idea I don't know anything about web design, digital marketing, anything. But I got a calling from God to go down there and just tell him, hey, I could build a website, and I build websites for people. And I had literally no idea how to do it. I've never built a website for anyone. He knew that I was an amateur, but he played it off to make me feel confident. And so we built a website for him 2 weeks later, and we kind of mastered it in 2 weeks, which is not actually mastery, but as much as you can master in 2 weeks. And then we actually got a 60x ROI on his initial investment in the website. And that's how we started our company. We realized, we could actually do this for a living. And then we scaled from there. And then Flow Forward Media or Flow Forward Creative started with one of our Flow Forward Media clients, Nick Lopez. He was at the University of Kentucky, baseball player, All-American in last year's season in 2024. And so what he was entering pro ball after his career at University of Kentucky. And so I started helping him try to land partnerships and created his marketing strategy for his personal brand. And then I realized, wow, we could probably do this with a lot more influencers. And so that's why we launched Flow Forward Creative in January of 2025.
That's awesome. I'm going to give you a softball question here, right? So question that's burning in my mind is, first off, within the influencer side of things, how have you found in your journey in both media and content creation, how has that shaped your perspective on influencer marketing?
Influencer marketing is extremely, extremely effective. The reason being is because we as a society pay to not see ads. We know when there's an advertisement. We know when there's a Facebook ad. We know when it's a Google ad. But with influencer marketing and affiliate marketing, they can make videos and posts that, it could be a lifestyle. It could be UGC where it's just a lifestyle video, a day in a life. And then they could sneak in a little brand here, sneak in a little brand there. And that will actually drive traffic and drive sales to the brands that they've partnered with. And the consumer doesn't even realize that they're looking at different brands, and then there's different product placement in all of these videos because they're just focused on, what's Johnny doing with his day in a life? And then all of a sudden, they keep seeing that brand over and over again. It becomes top of mind. It drives sales.
That's awesome. Great perspective. And what's amazing is I've heard a statistic. I don't know if it's true, but they say the average person sees on average like 1,000 to 2,000 ads a day, right? That cross social, across things like that, which
Mhm.
was really fascinating because I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, you do see a lot of ads, but when you have an influencer that does really great product placement, that can be really effective because some of these people probably want to be like that influencer, right? They want to live the life. So they see that they take a certain type of protein or creatine, they're most likely going to purchase that, you know?
Mhm.
So really fascinating. So I'm curious. There's a lot of influencers out there, right? All different sizes, all different niches. So when it comes to influencers, how do you personally define an influencer in today's marketing world? And is it just about social media followers, or is there more to it?
I don't think it's about social media followers at all, actually, um, because it depends on your audience, right? Kim Kardashian, she has hundreds of millions of followers, and I don't know how many of those are ride or die, but probably not a lot. But then there's guys that have a way smaller following, like nano influencers, guys with under 10,000 followers that have a ride or die audience. I've seen that from my own Instagram. I only have like 1,800 followers right now, but like the people that follow me are like ride or die, hoorah, sending me messages, always connecting with me. We're always messaging each other. And so I wouldn't consider an influencer the standard for an influencer isn't X amount of followers. It's that how strong is their audience. Because if I have 20 people that follow me, but they'll do anything I say and they'll follow any trend that I put out there, that's a pretty strong following. That's a pretty strong influence. And so I think of it as audience rather than following.
That's awesome. I love that perspective. And now, publicly for the record, I've started becoming a Kardashian fan because of my wife. We've started watching the Kardashians. So thanks for bringing that up. Publicly stating I'm in love with the Kardashians. They're awesome. It's great.
Yeah.
So we all want to be Kim K one day, right? So
Yeah,
love it.
sure.
So I'm curious, what separates from what you've seen? What separates a successful influencer from someone who just has a large following, right? Because following isn't everything, but what does success look like in the influencer world versus someone that maybe has a lot of followers but isn't successful?
Well, you have to think of it like this. You have to be intriguing. You have to understand how to garner attention. And when social media first started, I mean, you can garner attention doing anything. If you're a weightlifting influencer, all you got to do is lift weights, and people will be like, "Oh my gosh!" But now it's become so oversaturated. So I always tell all of our influencers that we manage and athletes that we manage that your difference is your destiny. What makes you different? What makes you unique? And go lean into that because everyone has a different story, everyone has a different fingerprint. So embrace that. If that means, you were born with, one leg or something like that, embrace that. Don't shy away from that, right? And we don't have an influencer with one leg, but I'd love to have one.
If you
That'd be really cool. That'd be really cool,
did.
right? And so
Yep,
what makes someone successful is their difference and how much they're willing to lean into that. Because everyone's afraid to do that because it's not going with the status quo. And so when you do that, you will receive backlash. But Rick Rubin said, if you know who Rick Rubin is, he's a great musician, producer kind of guy. He said that whenever you lean into your difference and you get backlash, lean into it even more because you're doing something right. And so I look for influencers and athletes that are doing something different. That they might be showing behind the scenes, the good, the bad, the ugly. They're fully transparent on Instagram. It doesn't have to necessarily be that their content is the highest quality, but how authentic are they? How engaging are they with their audience? And I feel like that defines a successful influencer.
for sure. Love that perspective. And I think it's a good reminder, right? We have grown up in this society where followers used to be a big thing, right? Social media has changed so much where it used to be so popular if you had 1,000 followers, right?
Yeah.
Now you can buy followers. Now there's all these different aspects that we've talked about previously about a lot of people look like they've got a lot of followers, but they're actually paid followers. So lots of different
Yes.
things to navigate, which is very fascinating.
Yeah,
Um,
Caleb, can I interrupt real quick?
yeah, for
I just
sure.
want to say for our viewers that just a little quick tip. If you see someone with 100,000, 200,000 followers and you don't think it's legitimate, go check out their Instagram reel and video views. I saw a company the other day with 75,000 followers averaging 1,500 views on every reel.
It's insane.
A little fishy, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I'm curious, why do people trust influencers more than traditional advertisers? Like, are there certain psychological factors that play into this?
Are you talking about they trust an individual like a B2C rather than B2B almost? So they trust
Yep.
because you can't connect as much with a brand as you can a person, right? And this kind of goes into personal branding as people buy from who they like, know, and trust. And I could like Nike and I could trust Nike, but I don't know Nike. But I could like Caleb. I know Caleb because I've met with him. I built rapport, and I trust Caleb, so I'm going to work with them. And so when you're looking at brands and when you're looking at brands compared to personal influence, right? Influencer, look at Elon Musk. It's a great example. It might be controversial for your audience. I don't know. But if you look at Elon Musk, he has 10 times more following than Tesla. Tesla's
Yep.
not the best car. Tesla's not the best product. I might offend some people here.
I'm gonna
Why do
say,
people
watch it.
buy?
I like Teslas.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. But people buy because Elon Musk, not because
Yep.
Tesla's the best thing ever. It's because they somehow align with Elon Musk. But
Yep.
Tesla it isn't a personal brand. And so you have the Tesla model, and so it's not the best product, but they align with the owner, the founder. And or you have the Nike model where Nike's product is so good, no one knows who Phil Knight is. They win by
Yep.
their product quality and their standard, whereas Tesla wins by the personal brand of the founder.
I love that. So I'm curious. You bring up a good point. Personal brand. How can it's kind of a more call to action type question, but diverting a little bit from where we're going. But personal branding. How can someone do that very successfully? Right. You talk about influencers, right, that you work with. What are the keys to success in personal branding, or how does an influencer really build out personal branding from that perspective?
Mm. I think it depends on what industry they're in. If you're a founder, your personal brand is going to be much different than if you're a baseball player. But some things that remain true and remain same throughout across all industries is you just got to start. You got to pull out your phone and start recording. I tell everyone that because people connect a face to the brand name, right? And so to start your personal brand, I tell everyone it's simple. Buy a tripod and record your day. Talk about your day. Talk about the hardships, the good, the ups, the downs, because eventually people that are afraid to take the risk that you're taking will start to vicariously live through you and start looking forward to looking at your content because it's like the next TV show.
Yep. Great point. And I think it's something that we forget, right? As people, we forget that sometimes people love living this reality of we don't think our life is fully ideal, right? Or we don't think that it's perfect, but people like to idealize people, right? So there's some factors there that are really fascinating.
Yeah,
Now
and
we
one
primarily
other
have.
oh
Okay, go ahead,
Oh,
get it,
one other
get
one
it.
other thing I would say is that to grow the personal brand, well, that's the start, is to take video. To grow the personal brand, though, I always like to self-reflect, self-analyze. I self-analyze every time I meet with someone. I'm going to self-analyze this. What could I have done better? What could I have said better, right? And so I'm already thinking right now of like, how can I answer questions better? And so what people need to do is they start recording, but then every new video, I learned this from Mr. Beast, every new video needs to be something better. Maybe a split second better. Maybe the transitions are faster. Maybe the color grading. Maybe the content. Maybe the hook. Everything needs to be better every single video. And if you create 1,000 videos, you're going to be really, really good at video 1,000.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if you've seen some of the podcasts where Mr. Beast talks about the way that he analyzes. It sounds like you have, but it's really fascinating, right? If we're going in a diversion, Mr. Beast, it's a really fascinating story, right? Because he's been doing YouTube for quite some time. He has one of the largest audiences. I heard he got an offer for like $1 billion or something for his company, which he turned down. And what's fascinating, right, is you would think if you were at that level, you could kind of chill out, right? You're not worried as much about the little details. But I listened to a podcast recently where he talked about Beast Games, right? And the aspects and the planning within Beast Games and how he analyzed that is absolutely incredible. And it's a good inspiration, right, for us of once we think we've made it, we really haven't made it, and we need to keep working hard, you know?
Mm, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I'm curious, primarily on this pod, we have a pretty big skew towards business owners, right? So for, let's say, smaller businesses, but then also larger businesses, right? What should businesses be looking for when they select an influencer to partner with, right? Is there, let's say, a checklist or certain key factors to consider? What do you recommend when it's a business looking to select or hire influencers?
Well, because I have a finance background, my initial thoughts go straight to liability, straight to risk before we talk about the assets and the benefits, right? And so, as a brand, you have to think about what's this person's track record, because you don't want to hire an influencer who's going to go to jail tomorrow, right? Because that's going to be like really bad.
Probably good. That's good advice right there. A,
Yeah,
do not hire someone that's going to go to jail. Great.
yeah. Or don't hire anyone who is on the fence of that, just kind of not a good person, right? And so you have to look at the character. Character always before content. If someone's watching this, character before content.
That's
Uh,
gold right there.
and and so character before content, and then you have to look at, after the character, what is their mission and values? Do they align with you? Because if you have someone that doesn't align with your values, your company is going to be misrepresented. So that's the liability portion of it. You have to make sure character, and you have to make sure you're properly represented. Now, from from a beneficial standpoint, or we can call it assets and liabilities, you have to look at the influencers. What is their audience? Is their audience ride or die? Is their audience really hyper engaged with the content that the influencer is focused on? Because if they are, the influencer could be selling freaking water bottles, that are just normal water bottles, and their fans, their viewers, their audience will go gaga over it.
Yep.
But if they don't have like a strong community and audience behind them, I mean, everything's just going to be ineffective. And so audience is really important. And then obviously like content and work ethic are cohesive. Like if you work hard, like how we recruit is we want to work and manage with people that work extremely hard, because if they work hard, they're going to pump out content. We have a golfer, his name's Eli Winters, and hopefully he can listen to this one of these days. But Eli Winters is one of the hardest workers I know when it comes to content. He posts 5 videos a day.
Incredible.
He went from 0 to 16,000 followers in like a year, and he's averaging right now like 7 million plus views just on Instagram alone monthly,
That's
which
crazy.
which is absolutely crazy. Like, dude, his engagement is more than some of these big, huge corporate accounts that have fake followers. Like we talked about that account that had 70K followers and averaging 1,500 views a video. He has 16,000 followers, and he's averaging it's like 10,000 views a video. It's ridiculous. Why? Because his audience is there. His audience loves his content, and they're ride or die.
Yeah, that's incredible. So crazy. Now, when
Yeah.
we get into the content creation and brand collaboration side, what's the ideal approach when a business collaborates with an influencer, right? There's this debate of should a business or brand give full creative freedom to the influencer? Is there a balance between structure and flexibility? In your opinion, what does that perfect balance look like?
I think there is some creative freedom and some creative liberty, but also you have to be structured, because if you don't have structure, you're going to get crushed, and you can be as a brand, you can get misrepresented, right? And so you have the brand who is structure, corporate laws, systems and processes, and then you have the influencer, the athlete, who's just the free flowing creative, just kind of lets things go by. It's just like, very creative and stuff like that. And so our company tries to connect the two. And so what we try to do is we try to communicate with the business, and then transform that language to communicate with the athlete, because the language of business is completely different than the language of influencer, and we've experienced that firsthand. And so there needs to be an even balance, and if there's a middleman that can speak both languages, it's going to be the best thing possible.
That's incredible. Love that. So, question. Have you seen, from your perspective, an example of a well executed influencer campaign that had a significant impact on a business?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll talk about one. Our first month was January 2025 for Flow Forward Creative. Flow Forward Media has been around for almost 2 years, B2B marketing. But Flow Forward Creative started in January 2025, so just a couple months ago. And our athlete, Nick Lopez, partnered with um, have you heard of like Zen pouches?
Yep.
Like like the nicotine pouches. It's an all natural nicotine free pouch that has kava root, ashwagandha, and L-theanine. So it makes you aware, but you kind of have a buzz, right? And so it was a startup that started in January, and they invested 30% of their first month revenue into Nick, which is absolutely crazy. And
Oh
when
yeah.
they did that, they ended up selling out in in the first like 40 days of their startup because they invested in and the influencer was invested into them. And
That's awesome.
now they're sold out, and they just restocked, but it's incredible. This company is just amazing. Um, and yeah, we're ride or die with that company.
It's incredible. That's so cool. Now I'm curious, right? So we've talked about this just in our conversations personally, but then, I think it's a broader question of when you look at brands working with influencers, right? How can brands build long-term relationships with influencers instead of one-off campaigns, right? Because as we know, it's easy for businesses to do one-off campaigns, but as a business, how do they build those long-term relationships with influencers to where they can do long-term type campaigns?
You ever seen Jerry Maguire, Caleb?
Jerry Maguire. Is that the
Sports agent movie.
I don't think I have. I don't think I have. I was
So
thinking of Jerry Springer or whatever. You are not the father, but
yeah,
the different.
yeah. So Jerry Maguire is a sports agent. It's a movie with Tom Cruise and Cuba Gooding Jr. Great movie. I suggest you watch it. And Cuba Gooding Jr. is the football player, the athlete, the star NFL player. And Jerry Maguire is the agent, the sports agent who just started his agency, left his old agency, started his new one. And Cuba Gooding Jr. calls Jerry Maguire and goes, Jerry, I want you to show me the money. Say it, Jerry. And Jerry's like, show me the money. Louder, show me the money. And so to answer your question, they got to start paying the athletes to create long-term partnerships. If you want investment from an influencer and athlete, you need to be willing to invest in them. And what I see a lot of times is that when athletes and influencers do not have proper representation, they'll just take anything. They think making $500 for 60 videos a month is worth it because they see $500. What they don't see is that they can be getting paid $500 for like 5 videos, 3 videos a month with the right company that is willing to invest in them. And
For sure.
so to create long-term partnership, they got to show them the money, right? They got to pay these athletes and influencers. And I hear it from my guys all the time. Like they need to get paid because they want to move away from these influencers want to move away from their 9 to 5 and just do content for a living. And they want to be really, really invested into these brands. And so the first thing is like these brands have to stop trying to penny pinch and just believe that they're going to get a return on their investment. So frugality is something I see from a brand side. Um, that I mean, the brands that pay us, our athletes, we're the closest with. We do everything with,
Yeah.
and we talk, we communicate, we care much more about brands that are going to invest in our athletes and influencers than brands that are just going to give them a product and a promo code.
That's awesome. I love that. That's a great way of thinking about it, which I think a lot of people need to reframe their way of thinking about it. Now, you've mentioned the finance background, you've talked about ROI. Obviously, something that we've seen on our side, and I think a lot of businesses have seen, is the actual side of tracking ROI, right? So, as we know, a lot of the largest challenges within influencer marketing can be considered measuring success, right? There's
Yeah.
sometimes a direct impact. You've made sales, but if there's not a direct sale that they can make, it might be hard for a brand to realize the actual potential. So, in your perspective, from the finance side, plus just running Flow Forward Creative, what metrics, or I guess first off, what are the best ways to track ROI and impact from an influencer perspective?
So we're actually currently working with some companies. Some companies have like product links. I mean, that's archaic almost. Like, everyone did product links and promo codes and affiliate links, right? So that's a way you track. But then we've actually been starting to work with some companies that will white label ads. And so if it's an apparel company, you make an ad, our influencer will make an ad and they'll run it on their account, white label it, retarget your following, and so your following is familiar with seeing um, your content already, but it's an ad. And then what I've seen is they have tracking metrics. This specific company, I'm not going to name them, but this specific company will run your content as an ad, pump a bunch of money into it, and then they have like some tracking link that if I click on the ad, it collects my information. And so anytime, if I'm just on the website from that ad, I could buy anything. I could buy this, and this. I could buy 20 different things, and it all tracks back to where I started was when clicking the ad. And then what they do is they pay our athletes and influencers a percentage of what that ad makes.
That's
And so
awesome.
that's a way to track. Not sure exactly the systems and processes and the API and all that stuff behind it, but that's a way they track. And so you have affiliate link, you have like advanced tracking through ad traffic, and then the last one is I tell a lot of brands that obviously it's an investment, but don't always just worry about the initial ROI because brand awareness is something that's huge, and
Yep.
especially with UGC content. I always tell people in my other business that brand awareness is big. Think about McDonald's. McDonald's is not in the restaurant industry; they're in the real estate business. Let's be real here. And if
Yep.
I'm on a highway driving 10 miles and I see McDonald's, Golden Arches every 2 miles, I just saw five McDonald's right there. So when, I don't have a child, but if I did, if my kid was hungry in the back, the first thing I'm thinking is McDonald's, even though I don't eat McDonald's. Why? Because it stays top of mind. And
It's a
so,
very relevant point. We deal with that on a daily basis. We want McDonald's chicken nuggets, and so it works.
dude,
Warrior case study right there.
yeah, yes, exactly. And it's hard to track too because you never know when the consumer sees the ad and goes, "Oh, cool, uh, cool, Nike," and then they don't click on the ad. But then 2 days later, the ad's still playing in their head, and they're like, "Okay, I'm going to go on Nike and go buy something now." And so, how do you can't
Yep,
track that? So, that's where the brand awareness comes in too.
for sure. So, what metrics on your personal side do you focus on when you're running an influencer campaign at Flow Forward Creative?
I like so when it comes to influencer campaign, obviously we have a couple standards. We have obviously we have a deal or contract that we work out with the brand on. Okay, we need to post X amount of time. So like those are our KPIs or standards. Our key performance indicators. And then what we track is views and then watch time. Watch time is huge. Watch time isn't the strongest metric, but we love watch time because it shows us how much engagement there is. And most of the content that people are posting, that our influencers are posting, is on video. So like, I mean, you can't really. I don't think you can track watch time with photos. So it's only video you can track watch time. And then we also track shares too, because shares is the thing that really boosts the algo.
Yeah, for sure. Love that. So, looking ahead, right, as we get closer to wrapping up this episode, what are some emerging trends in influencer marketing that brands should be paying attention to?
I was going to say day in a life. That's so basic, like because that's like old now. That's old. Um, I think, dude, that's a good question. Um, I'm going to be honest, man. I don't like trends.
Yeah.
I don't like trends because trends go in and out.
Okay.
And so when I'm talking to brands, like, okay, cool, like if they want to, do a little dancing trend, and you're sitting on, your head and you're bobbling up and down because it's a trend, cool, right? But then guess what? In like 6 months from now, it's going to be over. And
Yep.
so we try to look for like good content that's sustainable. that's popular through all generations. That's popular through year in, year out. And so when we look at content for our athletes and influencers, we're telling them, hey, build your personal brand and then make stuff that you would like, that your demographic would like. But like the trendy stuff, like that's almost oversaturated. Like using the same sound that 50 other thousand people have used, like that's that is what it is. You're just another person at that point. But like our trend is standing out, and that's the biggest
Yep.
thing. We don't really try to follow
That's
too many
awesome.
trends, or at least I don't. But yeah,
I would say I resonate with that. Sometimes trends can be helpful, right, for brands,
yeah,
or sometimes it can build that impact. But what's interesting, right, is it's a lot easier to follow a trend and go viral from following a trend versus coming up with something unique or something that you follow consistently with, that you
yes,
build the audience that way, right? Perfect
yes,
example. I've got an influencer that I unfortunately, probably a good and bad thing. I have not had TikTok on my phone for the past 6 months to 8 months, right?
uh
And
huh,
so sometimes I'll watch Instagram Reels, but I was spending too much time on TikTok. So I get a lot of my content from other people. But when I was on TikTok consistently, there was a guy named Kevin. He owned an
uh huh,
agency up in somewhere in Michigan, right? And
uh
what's interesting about him is his content strategy was a day in the life, or basically a day of an agency owner. He documented it every day, and he was on day like 600, right? Every single day posting content. He was not in front of the camera dancing to trends. He literally had the same audio, that type of thing.
huh,
Fascinating, because he built what I would consider a much stronger audience than those
hmm.
that just build an audience based on dancing or things like that. So obviously not diminishing the value of trends, but at the same time, I think there is something to what you said of you can't just be focused on trends and looking ahead. You have to build consistency, which is a really powerful point.
100%. And I tell all my guys too. I do this personally, is I don't follow trends. What I do is if I was a baseball player, right? And so what do? I look at the best baseball player, Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, whatever. And I look at them. I go, how do they work out? What do they do in the off season? How do they eat? How do they recover? Let's research that because they're the best of the best. They're the cream of the crop. They're top dog, right? And so I look at that. I'm like, okay, how can I implement what Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout, Mookie Betts are all doing into my daily life and put my own spin on it, right? And so
Yep.
that's what I do with my personal branding. So the only kind of trend that I'm thinking of is archetypes. Find the best person, find someone who's world class in your industry, pull from the stuff that you like and put your own spin on it. And now it's original.
Love that. Look at that. That's some gold right there. That's a clip worthy piece of advice right there. I love that. Now, Marcus, I have to say this has been quite the awesome conversation, and I'm excited for this to go live because I think it's going to be really valuable for people that are interested about influencers or things of that nature. Now, I am curious, do you have any final words of wisdom for businesses looking to dive into influencer marketing?
Don't be afraid to spend money. The more money you
Mm,
throw out, the more comes in. Both my
love that.
companies, I pay all of my staff super, super well to the point where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I should do this. And every time I give away my money and help other people out and sacrifice my earnings for the betterment of our company, it always comes back tenfold, fivefold, whatever it is. And so be abundant with your cash flow, because if you have an emotional attachment and you hold on to the money, guess what? You're going to be holding on to the money so tight that you can't ever receive. But if you go like this, you could also receive with these hands.
Can't be a Scrooge McDuck. I love it.
Hmm.
Great advice. Now, Marcus, thanks again for being on this podcast. And if you're listening and you're interested in connecting with Marcus Johnson, he's got a great LinkedIn. He's posting some great content. Highly recommend that you reach out to Marcus or at least give him a follow on LinkedIn. And if you're curious, both companies he owns obviously are Flow Forward Media, a marketing agency, Flow Forward Creative, an influencer partnership agency. Highly recommend giving him a follow. Check him out. And if you're interested in connecting, make sure you reach out to him on either of those platforms or just LinkedIn. So, Marcus, thanks for joining us. Love the conversation. Thanks for being on. And we'll make sure to link Flow Forward in the episode description so listeners can actually check out what incredible work you're doing and the incredible work that you're going to continue doing. So, as we conclude, Marcus, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Caleb.